At age 39, Jesus called me to lead a leper colony in Seattle, Washington. It wasn't a real leper colony. It was disguised as a church. But it felt like a leper colony, at least what I think a leper colony might feel like. Now, Seattle was a noted leper colony hotspot because it had the lowest church attendance in the nation at that point. The church was a shadow of its former self. 2 decades ago, it was the largest church in the city of Seattle, about 2,000, which was a monstrous church in those days. It was the flagship of the charismatic movement in the region, with all of the godliness and craziness that went with that movement, and began to decline. Now it was only a shadow of its former self. I was being called to bring it into a new day, and I didn't have a clue what to do. It had declined because it had no vision, it had no mission, had no purpose. It was filled with toxic leadership from the top down and financial mismanagement thrown in for some good measure. On top of that, the congregation didn't trust its new pastor, me. Why should it? The other pastors had lied to it, and I had to regain that ground. Any new initiative was brought with skepticism at best and outright resistance at worst. I joined the colony when there were 350 people left of the 2,000, and we continued to decline over the next 6 years to 150. It was personally very painful. The other 2 churches I'd led had grown well. This one was declining very well. Any effort to bring change was interpreted as more pain, which just increased resistance. Money was tight, tension was high, people were leaving, and finally we could no longer support the 100,000 square foot facility that had been our home for many, many years. By the way, our campus was incredibly confusing. Guests found it difficult to find the front door. I'm sure it was laid out by a drunk, demon-possessed architect. It was just awful. We were also an aging colony, which is predictable. 57% of our congregation were age 63 or older. Add to this, the budget had 2% that went towards outreach and missions, and over 70% towards salaries, because you can't fire a fellow leper. You just can't. Finally, on top of that, we had a Christian school where only 3 of the 32 teachers attended our church, and about 24 of the 175 students attended our church, but we were legally and fiscally responsible for supporting it. In all of this, I still knew Jesus wanted me here. I knew he had a plan, I just didn't know what his plan was. Now, I don't know what your relationship with Jesus is, but mine tells me that it is strained from time to time, and occasionally, and this may warp your theological view of our Lord, but he can be a bit sarcastic with me. And I remember driving to work one day and asking him, saying, "Isn't there another place I can go? Isn't there something else I can do? I've been successful other places." And I distinctly heard him say, "Oh, I'm sorry, did I make a mistake? Is there another place where you could be more effective that I've overlooked? Please instruct me." And I quieted right down and I drove the rest of the way to work.